Tonight on the Black Channel. Since when do white supremacists love civil rights when they think they have the ability to redefine it to be themselves? Watch civil rights get hijacked. The Black Channel is live. Unapologetic, unadulterated, and absolutely uncompromising. Greetings, brothers and sisters from around the world, and welcome back to the home, the haven, the stronghold, and the everlasting superfortress of intelligent black thought. We are the Black Media, and this is the Black Channel. And I am your host, your brother, your humble servant, the voice of Black America, the Black Authority, broadcasting to you live from the only historically black college university of higher education and learning in the cosmos. You are, of course, welcome to join us. And join us you shall, because on tonight's program, just a brief reminder here to you all, you have to understand white supremacy does not take a holiday. And part of the warning that we give people about the law of white supremacy is the "I'm white and I say so" edict of it, that if you show them and hit them in the face with things that they have said, they will tell you that it doesn't apply unless they say it applies. So just remember, as it stands here, the law is whatever the white supremacist power structure says it is. Therefore, when they try to tell you that they've passed laws on your behalf, that is why the response is always, well, no, the law is whatever you say it is at that moment. And that's what needs to be undone. You cannot have a system of justice when someone else has the ability to say, well, I will ignore the written law whenever I choose. Now, right now, I want to go ahead and show you a series of stories here from the Associated Press that are all very much interconnected and interrelated here. And it's also a good reminder for other people in other ways. Now, you've heard about this guy, Ed Blum, as you all know. This is an individual here who has been funded by various nefarious individuals for the purposes of attacking black people's rights, but attacking black people socioeconomically. That's been what his job has been to do, is to keep filing frivolous lawsuits all over the place, specifically attacking black people. He's not concerned about anybody else. No one else he's concerned about. Black folk, and that's it. So the media, and we're going to come to that here in a few moments, because the media hasn't said nearly enough about this. And here's an article from the Associated Press. As diversity, equity, and inclusion comes under legal attack, companies quietly alter their programs. And then you see who they show in the article here. Now, she has an absolutely wonderful skin tone, absolutely wonderful. And her name is Sophia Daniel Okoti. Sounds like a Nigerian name, because it is. In Fayetteville, Georgia. I'm bringing it up for a reason. Sophia Daniel Okoti has ambitious plans for her Nigerian-inspired clothing line, but a sense of dread has punctured her optimism as she watches a legal battle being waged against a small venture capital firm that has provided funding instrumental to her boutique brand's growth. The case against the Fearless Fund alleges that one of its grant programs discriminates against non-black women and asks the courts to imagine a similar program designed only for white applicants. Well, you do. It's called Gucci, Versace, Fendi. It is among a growing list of lawsuits against corporate diversity and inclusion programs that are making their way through the courts this year. Most have been filed by conservative activists encouraged by the Supreme Court's June ruling ending affirmative action in college admissions, and are now seeking to set a similar precedent in the working world. The battle has been a roller coaster of setbacks and victories for both sides, but some companies are already retooling their diversity programs in the face of legal challenges and the growing expectation that the conservative-dominated Supreme Court will eventually take up the issue. One conservative activist, Christopher Rufo, now for those of you who listen to Professor Black Truth, you've heard that he's been informing you about Christopher Rufo for some time now, claimed another victory this month with the resignation of Harvard's first black woman president, Claudine Gay, after allegations of plagiarism and a furor over her congressional testimony about anti-Semitism. Rufo, who has cast Gay's appointment to the job as the culmination of diversity and inclusion efforts that have sidelined conservative voices in higher education, vowed on social media platform X, formerly known as Twitter, to, quote, not stop until we have abolished DEI ideology from every institution in America. Dozens of prominent companies have already been targeted, as well as a wide array of diversity initiatives, including fellowships, hiring goals, anti-bias training, and contract programs for minority or women-owned businesses. So you have to understand, up until now, fellowships, that's never been a problem. Well, yes, when it favored white men, when they were getting everything they wanted out of it, that wasn't a problem. It's only when other folks started seeing how to use it for their empowerment that all of a sudden, oh, rule change. Some challenges are focused on policies adopted after the 2020 protests over George Floyd's killing by police, as companies pledged more efforts to redress racial inequalities in the workplace. But others have targeted decades-old diversity programs that anti-affirmative action advocates have long tried to dismantle. Now, when you hear people talk about settled law and things like that, isn't it amazing? It's never settled law when it's black people. When the descendants of the slaves are at focus, it's never settled law, and people never treat it that way. It is never regarded as a given. That's never the case. They're here to roll back not the 20th century, but the 19th century. And the corporate and cable media hasn't said anything about that. Diversity and inclusion experts say the legal backlash is already having a chilling effect over corporate efforts to address workplace inequality at a time when investment and interest in such initiatives has slowed following the post-Floyd surge. And this is why you have to be reminded here, the media will latch onto these things. And the media will tell you it's important so long as they want it to be important. Let's be very, very clear. Our movement, our mission of freedom, justice, and equality long predated George Floyd. It has been a continuous campaign and a continuous crusade for centuries now. So this idea that George Floyd is a bellwether moment or some big push there, that's the culmination of everything that's come before that, and we have continued to do so. So you can't let them define the narrative, because them defining the narrative is that George Floyd was a high point, when in reality, we never stopped moving. Joe Biden is scared to death right now because there wasn't a George Floyd surge. There's been a black empowerment movement, and the media couldn't turn their eyes away when it happened in 2020 because of the pandemic. They couldn't, that was what they were like, okay, there's a pandemic, and yet we hadn't stopped what we were doing. You see, that was what I mean by our commitment, our dedication to it. The whole world has stopped, and yet we were still out there in the streets as if nothing had changed. Yeah, because nothing had changed for us. So for them, ooh, this is a surge. No, this is us doing what we've been doing the whole time. You have been trying to ignore it the whole time. You're like, damn, they won't go away. I guess we gotta take a look at it because they're not stopping. The article goes on to say here that job openings for diversity officers in similar positions have declined in recent months. The combined share of venture capital funding for businesses owned by Black and Latino women has dipped back to less than 1% after briefly surpassing that threshold, 1.05%, in 2021 following a jump in 2020, according to the nonprofit advocacy group Digital Undivided. The case against the Fearless Fund, which provides early-stage funding to businesses led by women of color, exemplifies the unpredictable legal landscape. In late September, a federal judge in Atlanta refused to block a Fearless Fund grant contest for Black women business owners, saying they are donations. Now keep this part in mind. An Atlanta judge refused to block a Fearless Fund grant contest for Black women owners, saying that they are donations protected by the First Amendment, and the lawsuit was likely to fail. Now, if you all remember, the Supreme Court, Citizens United, let me give you all just a brief legal recap here. The Supreme Court, after Citizens United, why they said that money was speech protected by the Constitution. That it would be okay for all these special interest groups and these political PACs to give all this unlimited money because money is speech. That money is speech protected by the First Amendment. Remember? Which is why I'm telling you all here that, by the way, once again, yes, I'm white and I say so. Money is speech, and that people giving donations, why that is protected by the First Amendment as speech. The Supreme Court has already ruled on that. So you're showing them and throwing their own rulings in their faces. But what did they say? Days later, a 3-judge federal appeals panel suspended the contest, calling it racially exclusionary and saying the suit was likely to succeed. Well, didn't that change? Quote, "Am I going to be able to apply to grants like these? Are they even going to exist?" said Danner Okodi, who received $10,000 from a separate Fearless Fund grant. With this last ruling, it seems like no. Danner Okodi first saw the potential for scaling her clothing brand when the COVID-19 pandemic shut down the boutiques and fairs that carried her designs. Searching for ways to increase her online sales, she landed a contract with subscriber-based retailer Stitch Fix and used a government pandemic relief loan to fulfill the order. Okay, but when she tried to build on that success, she ran into roadblocks as banks declined her loan applications, deeming her business model risky since her clothes are handmade by Nigerian tailors. Now, let me go ahead and discuss that real quick here. Folks, Silicon Valley is nothing but an incubator of not just, quote, risky, but absolutely fraudulent white enterprises. When you talk about FTX, when you talk about Silicon Valley Bank, when you talk about Theranos, we can run down a never-ending parade of fraud that isn't in the millions or the hundreds of millions. You're talking about fraudulent internet startups that are given billions of dollars. Not thousands, not $10,000. We're talking about companies that are given hundreds of millions and billions of dollars to execute outright fraud by these venture capital funds, and yet there aren't any black people. They can't show you any black people that they gave this money to execute a fraud. So the banks are telling you that your business model is too risky. And yet these will be the same folks who will jump in hook, line, and sinker with all 4 feet when some white folks show up. It's like, oh, don't worry, you can get unlimited amounts of money to go and pull off your fraud. Remember Nikola? I mean, I can go down the list here, folks. I really don't have to, but these are companies that were executing outright fraud. And yet these venture capital funds have ponied up, and these banks, venture capital funds and banks have ponied up billions. Please remember Elon Musk, notorious white supremacist. His purchase of Twitter, a large part of that is underwritten by some of your major investment banks. And their quote investment has lost 70% of its value. Think about that for a few moments. Now, they were there underwriting that, and yet it has lost 70% of its value. Excuse me, aren't these the same banks who will tell you that your loan is too risky? Oh, well, we've done our due diligence, so let me get this straight. FTX, not too risky. Theranos, not too risky. Twitter, not too risky. 10,000, did you too risky? Yeah, we looked at it. Yeah, we decided that ain't gonna work. By the way, Elon Musk, the boring company. The boring company. Every time he came up with some crazy idea, what the hell? I want you all to understand something. Let me go ahead and show you something. Let me go ahead and read this to you here. The banks who loaned money to Twitter: Morgan Stanley, Bank of America, Barclays, MUFG, BNP, Paribas, Mizuno, Societe Generale. Think about that for a few moments. Morgan Stanley, Bank of America, Barclays. We're talking about some of the very largest banks in the world, to the tunes of billions of dollars. While they're telling you, oh, well, we don't need to do anything for you. Yeah, it's a level playing field. If it's a level playing field, then why the hell is it that Facebook exists today? Snapchat. These are companies that have done nothing but lose money. And yet they were allowed to parlay into different things. Elon Musk is using taxpayer dollars today with SpaceX, but not just SpaceX, by the way. So when you're a white male, you're given things with nothing more than an idea. Let me remind you all, because remember, I've been following this since day one on these things here. Please keep in mind, Mark Zuckerberg didn't program Twitter, nor did he set up its current infrastructure. It was set up as a very bare bones website originally, when it was the original Facebook. But to get that thing off the ground, they came to them with an idea, and here, we'll give you $50 million. Not 50,000, 50 million for an idea. Now, please remember, that's just one, because remember, there have been a bunch of other would-be social media startup companies that got similar types of funding in the millions that didn't make it. Facebook is the one that made it. You all can go on Google and look up a long list of other would-be social media startup companies that didn't make it. And you're talking about hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars that was poured into all of those, and they didn't make it. Or the guys who started it, they started it up and then cashed out, and away they go. They're gone. While they're telling you that your ideas are too risky. $10,000, oh, you're too risky. You're too risky. Not enough for you here. Too risky. That's amazing how that happens, isn't it? So I just want to remind you all of exactly what in the world happens there. This is not accidental. This is not accidental at all. The world flips on its ear when you show up. When you show up, the world flips on its ear. When you show up, all of a sudden the rules change. And then you're taking a look at where all this white privilege has been spread around and has been flooding everywhere. You take a look at where the white privilege has been flooding everywhere. But they're telling you, you don't have any black equivalent to it there. Now, when you go into the music business, now think about this for a few moments. In the music business, black folk have been able to show what they've been able to do, but they've had to overcome the odds to do so. They had to overcome the odds to do so. Now, imagine if black folk in the music business or anything else had been given the same funding their white counterparts did. We're the only folks who have to earn anything. Well, if that's what we did in the music business and the movie business and in sports, if we've been able to do that there, imagine if we were actually receiving the same funding that the white dudes were getting. Well, if we were actually getting it, you wouldn't have to, obviously we're not getting the same thing. If we were actually getting it there, you'd see a whole world of different results as evidenced by what we've done everywhere else. So yeah, the problem is that, by the way, it's not up to us to prove to you why we need this funding. It's up to us. It's up to you to demonstrate why it is that you have not given it. And we all know why that is, because they're here. These are enrichment programs, everything from YouTube to Facebook to Twitter. All these are enrichment programs for white people. The only time black folk get anything is if you figure out a way behind the scenes and under the radar to make something work for yourself. And even still, you aren't getting the multiples or the scale of return on investment that you should be getting. There's a Mr. Beast doesn't occur in a vacuum. Folks, I want y'all to understand, I've traveled across this country. Do you realize that Mr. Beast is all up in Walmart in a bunch of places? His Mr. Beastifuls or Mr. Beast Foods. While folks were talking about, his internet his YouTube channel and his burger joints, by the way, he's got candy bars and every damn thing, candy bars and jelly beans and everything else in Walmart. Oh yeah, by the way, and not on the bottom shelf neither. Not on the bottom shelf neither. Right there in the middle. Right there in the middle. I don't have to show you I don't have to make an argument for white privilege. I can just show you a photograph. You got black folk who've been arguing with Walmart now for decades, arguing with Kroger's and these other food stores for decades. And yet, Mr. Beast, a young white male, they've made sure that he's given every opportunity. Doesn't have to lift a finger. It will be handed to you because competition doesn't work in a system of white supremacy. Competition has routinely failed them. That is the problem. Competition is the destruction of white supremacy. If they have to compete, they immediately fail. When we compete, we're perfectly fine with competitiveness. As you saw in my documentary, Race War, I interviewed Richard Spencer. He sat there and outright said, yeah, I don't believe in competition. No, not at all. Well, of course he doesn't. He's looked at the results of the last century and a half. Ooh, competition don't really work. That doesn't really work out. So I just wanted to give you a brief reminder here of exactly why it is that this is the situation it is, why it is that it's ridiculous for them to say this kind of thing that, oh, your business model is risky, but Theranos isn't risky, FTX isn't risky, Twitter isn't risky. All these Bitcoin finance exchanges, oh, those aren't risky. Those aren't a problem. Oh, you, however, Tinder, I don't know, we can help you. That's just risky. When you show up, they talk to you crazy. If you all understand that that is not a mistake, that is part of the plan. Give me the pencil emojis in the chat room and hit the likes button. There's over 3,000 people in here live. If you agree that you understand that that's not an anomaly and that's not a fluke, that is the plan and it's engineered that way, give me the pencil emoji in the chat room and hit the likes button for me. The article goes on to say here that the Fearless Fund, Danner Okotie said, grasped her mission of designing clothes for American women looking to celebrate their African heritage. Now, of course, that's a bit of a different conversation, although I will touch on this a little bit later. The grant was a game changer, allowing her to contract a factory in India to make uniquely designed fabrics for her team of tailors in Nigeria. But now, future funding from the program is in jeopardy. The lawsuit against the Fearless Fund is being brought by the American Alliance of Equal Rights, a nonprofit founded by anti-affirmative action activist Ed Blum. I object to that absolutely disgustingly misleading label. Ed Blum is not anti-affirmative action. Ed Blum is anti-black. He is not anti-affirmative action. He is anti-black. The Fearless Fund is not about affirmative action. Ed Blum is an anti-black white supremacist. That is what Ed Blum is. So to try to redefine that or relabel that as well as anti-affirmative action, no, that's anti-black. And you should be naming it as such. Anything else is a lie. Associated Press, to label him as anything other than anti-black is a lie. The demon behind the college admissions cases the Supreme Court ruled on in June. The outcome of the case could be a bellwether for similar diversity programs. Oral arguments in the case were scheduled for January 31st. Adjusting diversity programs faced with a messy legal landscape, companies are being cautious. Most major companies have stuck by diversity initiatives that many ramped up in the face of pressure from shareholders, employees, and customers. Starbucks and Disney are among companies that have so far prevailed in court against challenges to their inclusion policies. But some have made changes to diversity programs to try to protect them from legal scrutiny. So what you're seeing here is that it isn't so much that these cases are successful. Guys like Ed Blum file these cases in the hope that it will scare people. So this is why you have to have a black legal class, a competent black legal class. You got the ACLU, but they don't serve us. You take a look at the Scientologists. The Scientologists exist today and are prosperous today because they have a robust and very active judicial class amongst their clergy. That's how they got their tax exemption, by suing the IRS in all 50 states. They had a very robust clergy. But their clergy wasn't just religious people. They had a very strong, very active judicial component and judicial activists among their group. They weren't just strong, they were also competent. And that is what we have lacked. You can't sit up here and make your goal in life to sit up here and twerk and buy shoes. Meanwhile, these other folks are sitting up here saying, yeah, let me go invest in a law degree so I can pro bono attack you in the courts 24/7. You can sit up here and look clownish trying to hold up a money phone on Facebook or Instagram, but these other folks are saying, yeah, we're going to invest in pro bonoism against you. So you're sitting on Instagram and they're filing lawsuits in the courthouses to target black people. So what we have lacked is a judicial class. We have lacked a law class, a class of legal activists. We haven't had that. Because you see, if we have something like that, the way that Jewish people have the ADL, and no, it's not lost on me about Ed Blum, for all of our Israeli activists out there, by the way, y'all have let Ed Blum rampage the countryside now for years. By the way, to all of our Israeli activists out there, couldn't help but notice y'all haven't said a word or done anything to stop Ed Blum all this time. He's still hard at work. He's been at work all these years and you never said anything about him. And nobody, hey, Juliana Margulie, you didn't say anything. You haven't said anything. He's been running in and out the damn courthouse, and y'all ain't said nothing. Now, you've had years, if not decades, to address this kind of thing, and not a word was said, and isn't being said now. It wasn't said now, but by the way, you've had years long before Hamas and the current conflict in the Middle East. You've had all this time to say something about Ed Blum and didn't say anything and never breathed a word. He's sitting up here attacking black folk 24/7. Don't tell me about putting up about no damn George Floyd. Are you calling out some of these white Jewish white supremacists here? Have you said anything to them who are going to the Supreme Court and trying to roll back the 19th and the 20th centuries? Y'all been quiet about Blum now for years. So you see, that's what we've been looking for is, by the way, you've been deadly quiet now for, while we've been talking about him, you ain't said nothing. While he's causing real, tangible harm, you ain't said nothing about that. We were already in the streets and made progress on George Floyd. You know, it'd be nice if you actually did believe these things. You would have been talking about Blum and the rest of his allies all this time, although maybe you haven't talked about him and his allies because you are his allies. Maybe the reason you haven't talked about him and his allies is because you are his allies. Maybe that's the reason. You think? Among those are two prominent law firms that had faced lawsuits by Blum's group. The firms, Morrison, Forrester, and Perkins Coie, opened their diversity fellowship programs to all applicants of all races in October, changes the companies said were in the works before Blum's lawsuits, which he subsequently dropped. So you see what happened there? So the whole thing is that his whole strategy is to scare people with litigation. Not to actually win anything, but just to see how many they can scare with litigation. In February, pharmaceutical giant Pfizer dropped race-based eligibility requirements for a fellowship program designed for college students of Black, Latino, and Native American descent, even though a judge had dismissed a lawsuit against the program 2 months earlier. Now, folks, Pfizer has been given every alley-oop imaginable for their vaccines that cause folks to drop dead. They've been given amnesty, essentially, but they've been indemnified, which means they are exempt from lawsuits. At the federal level, you can't name a black enterprise anywhere, a black so-called government program so to help black people where you are exempt from lawsuits. They don't have that anywhere. Oh yeah, but Pfizer has it. That is a white empowerment program. When you take a look, by the way, the only folks who are exempt from these lawsuits are these white companies. These are white companies with hella white boards of directors and white businessmen and white millionaires and billionaires running it. Yeah, that is an affirmative action program. And they have been given the protection of law at the highest levels. And Ed Blum hasn't said a word about that. Well, no, because he's a white supremacist and a Nazi, and this is what they do. It's like, yeah, well, don't worry. We're protecting these white institutions. And anything that could change that from being a white institution, well, we're going to go ahead and that's what we're going to attack. So that's the strategy. We don't have to say that these are white companies. You can clearly take a look at it and see this is a white company and it is reliably, consistently maintained that way. Despite the change, the conservative nonprofit suing Pfizer, Do No Harm, is appealing the lawsuit's dismissal, arguing the fellowship's goals remain the same. So this is for the purposes of trying to scare them. Now here's the thing. Pfizer has billions of dollars at its disposal. If Pfizer had put out a drug that was killing people, oh, never mind. If Pfizer was putting out a drug that was killing people they didn't have an exemption for, Pfizer would spend hundreds of millions of dollars to defend that drug and to keep it on the market. So don't tell me that Pfizer is afraid of fear of litigation. It's based on that's their principle not to do it. But all these pharmaceutical companies have to fight lawsuits all the time. They fight lawsuits to keep their destructive products on the market. They do it every single day in courthouses, every single day. The Wisconsin Institute filed another lawsuit, half of two. The lawsuit seeks to dismantle the U.S. Department of Transportation's Disadvantaged Business Enterprise Program, which dates back to the Reagan administration and requires that 10% of funds authorized for highway and transit federal assistance programs be expended with small businesses owned by women, minorities, or other socially and economically disadvantaged people. Folks, 10%. 10%. Now, I want you to understand that we've already covered here on the Black Channel for decades now. We've covered it for decades that all these construction companies, Clark Construction and the others, they get all these sweetheart government deals, they get all the big money contracts and whatnot. Folks, 90% of these things are going to white men. 90%. The other 90% is going to the white men. The other 90. What they're telling you is that they want to starve out and strangle everybody else from being able to get anything at all because they know that as black people, if we're given pennies, we can turn that into dollars. They're here to make sure that we exclude from even the remote possibility of any sort of possibility that you could actually get anything. We want it to be beyond even the remote possibility of conceiving the. They believe in attacking the baby in its crib. They don't believe in letting you get big enough that you can be a threat. They believe in attacking the baby in its crib. They believe in attacking children. They believe in attacking you when you are small. They're like, hell, you don't wait until they get big enough to fight back. You attack the babies. You slaughter the babies. You slaughter the children. That's what you go after. That isn't accidental when that kind of thing occurs. When that kind of thing happens, that is the plan. This has always been the plan. Always. All these other things are going on out here, and yet they don't have an idea. They don't have something better to do with their time? No. When you see somebody telling you that 10%, oh, no, not 10%. What they're saying is they understand that this is economic warfare and that they're here to make sure that we've eliminated even the possibility you could start anything. We're going to make sure what I'm showing you is that they are already nakedly showing that their goal is the apartheid strategy, that they will be the population numerical minority, but the permanent economic majority. That's what this is about. The majority of the workers may be non-white. But as long as white folk own the companies and that they've rigged the laws so that you don't have a chance to get in, because what they're saying is we want to freeze things exactly as they are now. They've already got practically all the contracts and they're like, yeah, and we don't want you to let anybody else in. So now they're just nakedly saying, 10%, we don't want any of that at all. Well, if they're not given the 10%, without them being given the 10%, they can't even learn how the process works with the government. Yeah, well, don't worry. They don't need to. We're the only companies you need. So if you want to talk about RICO, if somebody wants to make an argument for RICO, well, there's an argument for a RICO lawsuit and statute right there, isn't it? There's an argument for it there. without question. Now it goes on here to say Dan Lennington, an attorney with the Wisconsin Institute, said he considers Comcast changes, quote, progress, but the anti-affirmative action movement is looking for a broader victory that could change case law on workplace diversity programs, and the lawsuit against the DOT has that potential. The Supreme Court's ruling on affirmative action opened up a whole new world, Lennington said. This decision just really injected new life into the whole debate. Please notice your white corporate cable TV outlets are not saying anything about this. Many of the lawsuits challenging diversity programs, including the cases against Pfizer and the Fearless Fund, are relying on a section of the Civil Rights Act of 1866, which prohibits racial discrimination in contract agreements. The law was originally intended to protect formerly enslaved people. We were the only enslaved people. But conservative activists are citing it to challenge programs designed to benefit racial minorities. Their lawsuits generally target programs that have clear race-based eligibility components. A more difficult challenge is proving that companies are making hiring decisions based on race, said David Glasgow, executive director of the Meltzer Center for Diversity, Inclusion, and Belonging at New York's University School of Law. Now, folks, remember, we've always been told that we couldn't prove racial discrimination unless they were sitting there on video or on audio saying we don't hire niggers, we don't hire black folk, remember? That's what we were always told. That's what we were always told. Remember? We were always told, well, you can't prove discrimination even if the company's board of directors is always white and middle management is always white, even if it's always that way century after century. Well, you can't prove that they aren't hiring any black people because of race. Remember? Well, here comes I'm white and I say so. Well, we say that we can prove that they hired you because you're black, without them saying that they hired you because you're black. So in other words, the disparate impact, or just to open your eyes and do a numerical counting of the races of the people, and now they're saying, well, we'll use that now. Because up until now, you told us that that didn't apply. You couldn't use that. You told us that didn't prove anything. That's what you said up until now, is that didn't prove anything. Now, it goes on to say here that taking race into account for hiring or promotions is illegal under Title VII of the 1964 Civil Rights Act. A debate has emerged about whether companies are crossing the line by announcing goals for increasing black and other minority representation. Companies say such efforts are not quotas, but aspirational goals they will try to achieve through policies like widening candidate pools and rooting out bias in hiring processes. Glasgow called it a gray area that could depend on a court's interpretation of corporate policies. He said it could be hard to prove discrimination just because a company, quote, announced in a really broad way that it would be nice to have more people of color in management. But plaintiffs could try to argue that diversity, equity, and inclusion policies are pressuring hiring managers to make race-based decisions. Once again, saying it's pressuring them, that is not saying that that's why someone got hired. Oh, I'm sorry, we're in on Why Didn't I Say So? Okay, well, now it can be. Well, that's interesting. We've been saying that the whole time. The Good Old Boys Network, we've been saying that the whole time now. When we were told that that was not sufficient to prove anything. Now, it is now. Conservative activists are trying to make just that case, seizing on corporate documents that share data on efforts to increase the ranks of Black, Hispanic, and other underrepresented groups in their workforce, however modest that progress might be. America First Legal, a group run by former Trump advisor Stephen Miller, sent a letter in November to the Federal Equal Opportunity Commission seeking an investigation into Macy's efforts to strengthen its DEI policies, arguing they amount to discriminatory hiring practices. Now, these are folks who should be concerned about keeping themselves out of prison. And yet what they're saying is, by the way, before they go lock me up, let me see if I can make sure about a couple of things here first. In 2019, Macy's announced a goal of 30% ethnic diversity among its leadership at the director level and above by 2025, in part to better serve its customer base, which is about 50% non-white. Now, Stephen Miller and the Wisconsin Institute and all these other groups, they didn't do any sort of hiring or investigation or filing of lawsuits. They didn't do any investigation with all these companies that were 100% white run, 100% white management to inquire as to how that could possibly be in a country where you're less than 70% of the population. Never asked any questions about that, never inquired, never filed a lawsuit, never did an inquiry. They never put together a legal foundation for that, never questioned that, how that could be the case. They never questioned it. Why they were perfectly fine. And just understand that this is how white supremacy works. The retailer launched a leadership program for selected managers of color, and last year required that candidates for director roles include ethnically diverse applicants. It also has incorporated its DEI goals into annual performance reviews for directors and company-wide incentive calculation. America First Legal cited those initiatives to argue that Macy's, quote, has set explicit racial and other quotas for hiring. The group has sent dozens of similar letters to the EEOC targeting companies from IBM to American Airlines. Macy's declined to comment on the letter, but in a previous interview with the Associated Press, outgoing Macy's CEO Jeff Jeanette said the company is sticking with its DEI policies while closely watching legal developments. Our enthusiasm and our commitment to all the prongs that we had with DEI and our strategy remains. We might express it differently based on court rulings and in the future, Jeanette said without providing details. Folks, what I'm trying to tell you here is that white supremacy puts money behind its operatives. It puts money behind these things. The root of white supremacy's power is its economy. They're not filing these lawsuits and prosecuting them based on a feeling. They're prosecuting them based on finance. That's why now they are trying to use the courts to economically decapitate or handicap us. These are all going after the economics. Understand what that is, your ability to build an independent economy of your own. Well, yeah, because people who are economically independent are far less easy to victimize. People who are economically independent are far more difficult to victimize. People who are economically poor are rather easy to steamroll. People who are economically empowered are much, much harder to stop. And then all of a sudden, all of these sweetheart government contracts that have just been handed to you, and all the media space has been handed to you, and all the Silicon Valley and new tech companies that were just handed to you, all of a sudden you watch as that goes the way of professional athletics and the music business. You watch as us walking in, all of a sudden you watch as you start to slide off into obscurity. This is about annihilating competition. This is about maintaining white privilege openly and overtly. That to the point that they're saying, by the way, you can't even have the crumbs. You can't even have 10%. No, you can't have that because they understand 10% will lead to more if they are forced to compete. Because by definition, white privilege allows you the ability to be lazy. Now, you have to work very hard and be very active to monitor other people to undermine them. But after that, you can go back to being lazy. Any of us who worked on a construction site have seen that. The black folk are doing all the work, but the white contractor is sitting there in the truck watching everybody else while he collects all the money. And of course, he will tell you that it's his company. Well, no, because you colluded with the city council people or the parish or county commissioners to give you these contracts that you are sitting up here making substandard roads and substandard work on. You didn't have to compete for it. It was given to you. By the way, remember they used to have to think about the lowest bidder, then they got rid of that. And yeah, once they saw that we were undercutting them, yeah, forget that lowest bidder. We're going back to, we got other criteria. And every time you box them in a corner, they say, oops, let me knock this wall out. And now there's a new corner. So just understand, Malcolm X said this decades ago. This isn't new. We've known about this the entire time. They talked about this decades ago when he said that when we came for the white schools, they left their rundown white schools and built new schools in the suburbs. When we came for the white houses, there was white flight, and they went and built great big huge subdivisions in the suburbs. But when we came for the money, when we came and said we need to have the jobs and the business percentages of the economy, Malcolm X said it. Can they abandon their jobs? We mean the money. Can they abandon their economy the way that they abandoned their schools and abandoned their houses? Not without violence and bloodshed. They cannot, because the economy is the root of the power. You build the schools, you build the houses, you build the infrastructure, you build the media, you build the pharmaceutical company, you build everything from the economy. Whoever controls that controls all these other things. All these other things are side effects and outgrowths of the economy. You control that economy, you control these other things, including who eats and who doesn't. Can they abandon their economy the way they abandoned the schools and the houses and the other things? Nope, you can't abandon that. Oh, you found the root of the problem. And they have been fighting to maintain control of that ever since. And now they have just become shameless in their hypocrisy and their blatant racism at this point. Now they're not hiding it anymore because you can't hide it anymore. See, we have finally worn them down and gotten to the root of the issue now. You can't hide this one. You can't hide this anymore. This is the last battlefield. This is the last bulwark. This is the last fortress. You can't go any further than this. Whoever controls the economy controls the direction of the society. So, oh no, they can't afford to give this one up. And what they're showing you now is, by the way, we need to make sure that we have eliminated even the remote possibility that you eventually in the future could challenge us economically, which means we can't have 90% control of the economy as white supremacists. We have to have 100%. We got to have it all. You can't have anything. Because we've seen how dangerous you are if we give you anything. So no, here's the new rules. We just own it all. We own it all. We control it all. And even if you become 98% of the population, well, we will just pass down ownership and control like some dark, evil cult cabal. Which is exactly what you've seen happen here ever since antebellum slavery ended. You all remember this is what the folks who own these plantations with their descendants, there's a reason you don't have conversations like this with them, because these folks, as they pass them down, they have the conversation. Just like as black parents, you have the conversation with your black children. The white supremacists have had the conversation with their white children. Now, this is the plantation that we've owned in our families here. Yeah, you heard some of that about some of the books. Well, that's what, we used to have the slave. Well, it wasn't what they told you in the books. The slaves were happy to be here. Why, we took good care of ours. Some of these other folks abused theirs, but trust me, our slaves were happy to work with. We took care of them. They were well fed and well clothed. Why, they even called your great granddaddy Big Daddy. They loved granddaddy. So, but it's not polite for folks to talk about that today, but just, baby, that's just the truth of it. They love being here. Now, you need to understand that you have to keep this in the family. So just understand we get homestead exemptions and a whole bunch of other goodies and things that allow us to keep this in the family, but you must remember what its purpose is. It must remain in the family because this is a source of wealth and this is our legacy. This is the source of our generational wealth. So you remember that those 4 or 5 DUIs you had that we were able to get you out of? Yes, it's the family's generational wealth that did that. You remember that thing you did with those 3 or 4 girls back there at the college dorm that we got that swept under the rug? Yes, it's the family's wealth that did that. It is the ownership of this land and this plantations. That's what did that for you. And if we lose that, then you lose the ability to be protected anymore. You and our descendants, at that point, we are done. You've lost it. So some of the things you've been able to do, you will no longer be able to do it. Your children will have to compete. If you have any children at all. And this is why when you take a look at people like the Murdochs, Rupert Murdoch's family and whatnot, the Trump family passing down the wealth, you take a look at what they've done. Did they make the world a better place, or did they make the world their big playground, violating people's rights, violating their humanity left, right, and center? That's the purpose. But you see, you cannot ensure that unless going forward you try to maneuver a way to get 100% control. That's the goal now, is how do we just crank it down and just take 100% control? Yeah, it's going to be open. Yeah, it's going to be blatant. Man, look here. We don't have any choice anymore. We don't have a choice any longer. We just got to bum rush the door, slam straight through the front of it, and just say, look here, niggas, this is what it is. It is what it is. Now, you'll notice you're not hearing the Joy Reids. You don't hear the Joy Reids, or even when Tiffany Cross was there, you don't hear any of their black puppets talking about this day after day. You don't hear them putting a spotlight on this. Oh, maybe it's because MSNBC and NBC are owned by Comcast, all right? You don't hear them saying anything about this. Now, you got folks trying to get up in your face about Israel and Ukraine, but yet this is going on all the time, every day, and they're not putting a spotlight on this to make these folks public enemy number 1. And that's not accidental. So I'm doing this tonight as a brief reminder to everyone. I'm doing this here as a reminder to you about how the racists hijacked civil rights. Dr. Claude Anderson warned us decades ago to stop using the phrase civil rights because it's a phrase that does not protect us. Stop using language that implies black and use language that clearly states black, so that when you say, hey, we're not being protected, they're analyzing black folk, not analyzing Mr. Civil. The other thing here is I want to remind you all that white supremacy puts money behind this hijacking civil rights. You're going back to the Civil Rights Act law of 1866 and weaponizing it, not for black people, but specifically against black people. That takes money, because in reality, there's no such animal as pro bono. Folks, there is no such animal as pro bono. That's what I'm trying to tell you. These folks fund these things. These things are funded by millionaires and billionaires. They are flush with cash. They're given those things. Why? Because the millionaires and billionaires who are funding it are trying to protect their white fiefdoms, to make sure that your children and grandchildren are automatically excluded from contention before we even have to discuss it. It doesn't even have to be discussed, because your kids are just excluded before they even have a chance to think about it. Hell, before you even have a chance to think about having grandchildren, they've already been excluded. An American racial caste system with black people as the permanent underclass. These things are not accidental. White supremacy is the status quo. These are white supremacist warriors of the status quo. When you point out to them how lopsided everything is, they tell you, well, you all just need to do more, but you've already made sure that they couldn't do more. Oh, well. And this is why we say cut the check. How do you deal with something like this? Cut the check. Not playing games and not pussyfooting about it here and not being indirect. Cut the check. You see, these folks use money to get this done. Money funds these think tanks. Money funds these law firms. Money funds these legal movements. Money also protects them against retaliation. Because you see, they're being independently funded, which means that they are not having to do like the rest of us and depend on the greater economy. So punishing them economically, they're being funded, so they're being insulated from economic punishment. So that allows them to attack you economically, but meanwhile, because of the folks behind them paying for it, they're being insulated and protected from it. That protects them from it. I want you to see all the dimensions to this so that you understand exactly how that happened. I'd also like to bring one more thing to light here. The black immigrant class has spent the better part of its emancipation that was provided to them by us when the freedmen who built the foundation of this country allowed a lane for them, talking about our African heritage. When they got over here, the first order of business was give me a white woman and give me a white man, and we don't fool with the Akatas. Except when it's to our benefit. Now that's what they did with us. She has an absolutely wonderful skin tone, and yet I do not know the woman's history, but I do know the pathology of the individuals who come over here, and generally speaking, they'll be the exact same ones on Twitter talk about I don't fool with black men and Zaddy is the greatest. Now that's what they would be telling us. Just as soon as they think they have an opportunity by themselves, they segregate themselves, they take themselves off by themselves, they insulate themselves. They don't go to work for the greater movement. They don't go to work for the greater society. They don't go to work for the greater population. They looking out for number one. Thank you for the money from the Freedom Fearless Fund. Let me go ahead and take care of us over here and damn the rest of y'all. Now, just understand, I'm not casting an aspersion on this woman in particular. I haven't had a chance to look into it, but we all know what we've been seeing. These very same folks here will come over here and tell you about how Zaddy is the greatest and ain't no racism. Remember? These would be the same folks who would tell you and me that there is no racism, ain't no white supremacy, you ain't trying hard enough, love sees no color, you all just ain't trying. Me and ours, we did it all by ourselves. These would be the same folks who would tell us that. Please keep that in mind. These would be the same folks who would tell us that. So for that reason here, I want to give a reminder about exactly how that happens. Let me send a shout out here tonight to everyone who has contributed to support tonight's program on PayPal or Venmo. Thank you very much for your support. Thank you very much here to Mr. Richburg, to Angela. Thank you very much as well here. Rhonda and anyone else here, there's a reason why we do this, because these folks here, I want you all to understand what the real problem is. I told you that they're going to go in the full court press, and here it is. You're sitting at home. It's cold outside. It's the holidays. We got a winter storm coming through Louisiana right now. You're sitting at home trying to bundle up and get warm and sit by the fire, and these folks are going to Virginia and DC in the coldest part of the year to attack your rights and to make sure that you are economically enslaved for the next 1,000 years. So when I say reparations is the only agenda and folks try to detour us off into something else, I'm like, no, I ain't trying to hear that. Well, Jason, what about COVID, man? Hand me my cough drops and my Theraflu and cut the damn check. Because we ain't going to take a holiday and we're not changing the subject. You know why? Because Ed Blum, when you told him, well, hey, man, it's cold outside and it's COVID, he said, hand me my overcoat and my devil's pitchfork. And we're going up to the Supreme Court to take these niggas' rights. Give me my snow boots. We're going up there. I don't care if it's 6 feet of snow. We bring the snow shovels. We are going to dig our way to the Supreme Court and take their rights. Doesn't matter whatever the weather. That's what you're up against. But we're not done here, folks. We got more to cover than this. I know we've been going on for a little bit of a while here now, but we're going to go ahead and take a very brief commercial, non-commercial break. When we come back, by the way, it is even more than that happening. And wait till you see the next piece of video I have to give you here. This is the Black Channel.
Hello, my name is Steve Burgess, and I'm the author of this book, Guidelines for the Successful Student, a closer look at parenting your school-aged child. In this book, I've explained the role of the parent and the student in addition to what accommodations, procedures, rewards and consequences and expectations that need to be in place to ensure student success from primary to high school. This book is available on Amazon.com. For more information, please visit my link tree at Easy One-on-One and to access my latest podcast, A Teaching Moment with Mr. B. Thank you all for listening.
A white supremacist assassin seeks revenge. Corrupt FBI agents with evil intentions. Dangerous black collaborators dedicated to treason. Occam Jeffers must defeat them all and somehow survive. One misstep and he's a dead man. Join Occam Jeffers as he looks the devil in his blue eyes and tells him, Black first. A sequel to the underground hit War of the Heart, Spirit of 1811 Publishing presents God Love Us, on sale at Amazon. Pre-order and save today. Visit spirit-of-1811publishing.com and show your love.
Order yours today to experience all the benefits of Ash Kickin' natural body butter. With skin so smooth and soft, you'll thank us for it. Shop Ash Kickin' online. That's ASHKICKIN.com.
Hi, this is Brenda Starr, creator of Poetry with a Purpose and author of the book Pressed But Not Crushed. Pressed But Not Crushed is an anthology of political poems that address current and historical issues in American descendants of slave population and African American population. The book describes slaveries and its residuals, Jim Crow segregation, social depredation, and other relevant issues to American descendants of slaves and African Americans, including the current political climate that does not address our issues.
This is the Black Channel. I am your host, your brother, your humble servant, the Black Authority. Very glad to be with you all here this evening. And just a little bit of a recap here, a little bit of housekeeping I need to do here tonight, obviously. Now, on last night's program here, because there are folks out there who didn't believe fat meat was greasy, but we've been talking about old hot girl summer, Fani the Mammy Willis. Did a whole program tonight focusing, a whole program last night focusing on her. Folks, you know you in trouble. You know you are in trouble. Understand something. The reason why we call them mammies is because they don't have a connection to the soil and they show it through their actions. Kamala Harris, we call her Kamami Harris because she doesn't have a connection to the soil. So when it's time to respond to things, they respond as a caricature of black people. and not an actual black person. So what they do with Barack Obama and Kamala Harris and the rest of them is real awkward and real cringe. Well, people, brace yourselves, because Fani Willis knows she in trouble. She's gone off and found some pulpit pimps back there and whatnot. She found somebody's church somewhere, apparently, and she is literally praying for her career and praying for her life right now is where she is. Fox 5 in Atlanta, they had a couple of minutes of it. People, first of all, I don't know who did the tarantula eyelashes on her. I don't know who did it. I don't know if she did it because she wanted to make sure it was visible from a long distance here, but I mean, those don't look like eyelashes. They look like tarantulas. It really does. It looks like little barbecue forks. Who did this? She had time to get ready for this too, by the way. Now, she had time to get ready. She had time to prepare. She had time to make sure that everything was laid right out of the gate. Well, in any case, prepare yourselves for the most cringe attempt at sister girling that we have heard since Kamala Harris put on a pair of Chuck Taylors and tried to dance the Millie Rock.
But dear God, are you listening? Why does Commissioner Thorne and so many others question my decision in a special counsel? Lord, your flawed, hard-headed, and imperfect child, I'm a little confused.
Now, did she say that the allegations aren't true? Now, this is the first thing I want us all to remember. By the way, does she at any point say that the allegations are false? Now, that's the one thing I want you all to keep in mind. Just keep listening for that. Does she ever say that the allegations are untrue and that she's going to prove that they're false?
I appointed 3 special counsel, as is my right to do. Paid them all the same hourly rate. They only attacked one. I hired one white woman, a good personal friend and great lawyer. A superstar, I tell you.
Oh, then did you see how she stopped there to say that? So she's letting y'all know, if you want to know the reason why we were against her from day one, if you actually talk to her for any length of time, why you can hear why we didn't want to support her. She's letting you know which side her bread is buttered on and whose butt she kisses. She ain't even being coy. Soon as she mentions a white woman here, she starts fangirling out. So she's just being straight up here about it. So if you want Exhibit A as to why we were against her from day one, she's just exposing that, oh, we weren't making it up and it wasn't black girl tragic. It wasn't being we were dead on the money what we were saying. Everything we said was dead on the money. All of it. All of it. And now she's just showing it. She's showing that every word we said about her isn't just true, but that we actually understated how much of a bootlicking mammy she is. The only thing she hasn't done right now is break out the banjo here and put on the handkerchief and start making some pancakes.
I hired one white woman, a good personal friend and great lawyer. A superstar, I tell you. I hired one white man, brilliant, my friend, and a great lawyer. And I hired one black man, another superstar, a great friend, and a great lawyer.
Another superstar. So she's trying to do the sister girl thing the whole time. By the way, are those white folk there with you today? By the way, are they in attendance at the church? I don't know. Are they? Are they stomping for you as hard as you sitting up here buck dancing and tap dancing for them right now? I'm just asking some questions, Miss Sister Girl.
Brilliant, my friend, and a great lawyer. And I hired one black man, another superstar, a great friend, and a great lawyer. Oh Lord, they gonna be mad when I call them out on this nonsense. First thing they say, oh, she gonna play the race card now. But no, God, Isn't it them who's playing the race card when they only question one? Isn't it them playing the race card when they constantly think, I need someone from some other jurisdiction in some other state to tell me how to do a job I've been doing almost 30 years?
Which job is that? Kissing white folks' asses, buck dancing, being their little chocolate delight? I don't know. Which one is, which job in particular are you referring to? Folks, it was obvious to see from day one, as soon as they parachuted her into that race, that she was just a puppet. And of course, you can see the black pulpit pimps back there. You know, they done got their little payoff because that's what they do.
Themselves and just be honest. I mean, can't they keep it 100 with themselves?
Now, is this supposed to be the funky cold Medina DA? Can't they keep it 100 with themselves? They sure ain't gonna like this. Lord, they sure gonna be mad when I drop these receipts. And so far, not a word about it. And take a look at this old sassy fella back there behind her. You call this professional? Seriously? This is how she responds to it? Where in the world did they find her? Was she one of the Cardi B alumni there? Was she one of the folks who went for the Cardi B audition and didn't make it?
They look at themselves and just be honest. I mean, can't they keep it 100 with themselves? Why are they so surprised that a diverse team that I assembled, your child, can accomplish extraordinary things? God, wasn't it them that attacked this lawyer of impeccable credentials? The black man I chose has been a judge more than 10 years, run a private practice more than 20, represented businesses in civil litigation. I ain't done, y'all. Served as a prosecutor.
Now, this right here is really offensive to me. Would she go to a white church and talk like that? Lie. See, this is this kind of condescending cringe garbage they do with us. Let's put the bull crap to the side. Would she sit up here and start cooning it up like this if she was talking to some white folks? Is this the way that she gives closing arguments or opening arguments in court, in the Supreme Court, in the appellate court? Is this the way she talks to other folk? So she can't come and speak to us as a dignified representative of the judiciary. So I submit to you that this is what the white folks who grabbed her and dropped her in against Paul Howard, this is why they chose her, because they know, oh, she's only half a step away. She's a little Nicki Minaj wannabe, but she ain't fly enough to be a Nicki Minaj wannabe. She ain't actually fly enough to get there. So she got to sit there in the judiciary and hope for the best. But by the way, you saw that from Kamala Harris, Cory Booker. Every time they come to talk to us, they don't talk to us the way they do white folk. Everything for us is some auditioning for BET, Buffoon Entertainment Television. So I wanted to point out to everybody here, if you want to know what's really wrong with this, by the way, do they talk to white folk like this? If she was at a white church, would she be sitting up here neck jerking and sister girling and throwing out the Urban Dictionary? Would she be doing that if she was talking to them?
The black man I chose has been a judge more than 10 years, run a private practice more than 20, represented businesses in civil litigation. I ain't done, y'all. Served as a prosecutor, a criminal defense lawyer, special assistant attorney general.
He's also a married man. By the way, while you sitting there in the church, why don't you go ahead and inform everyone that, by the way, among all his other accolades is married man? And that didn't prevent you from striking up a relationship with him. And the church is definitely the place for us to have that conversation. So while you're sitting up here neck jerking and sister girling and calling on the Lord, would you go ahead and inform everybody that, by the way, in addition to all of his other accolades, attorney and judge, also husband. But that didn't prevent me from laying up with him here. Notice she isn't saying a word about that. And is anyone there calling her out on that for using the Lord's name in vain? It's like, by the way, ma'am, you're leaving out a very important fact about him, aren't you?
Businesses in civil litigation. I ain't done, y'all. Served as a prosecutor, a criminal defense lawyer, special assistant attorney general. Won Chief Justice Robert Benham Award from the State Bar of Georgia. You know, they ain't just giving this to black men. How come God, the same black man I hired, was acceptable when a Republican in another county hired him and paid him twice the rate? Oh, y'all ain't hear me.
Now remember, this is the person prosecuting Young Thug, and it seems more like she wants a record deal with his label. This is supposed to be the person prosecuting Young Thug now. And it sounds like she's auditioning to get her mixtape heard. Just thought I'd point that out.
And paid him twice the rate. Oh, y'all ain't hear me. In another county, the elected official has the authority to pay him twice the rate. Why is the white male Republican's judgment good enough, but the black female Democrats not?
Was he sleeping with your boyfriend at the time? I mean, inquiring minds want to know, because you said, how do the black men, they ain't just giving them to the black men, they giving them to the gay ones. So I'm just asking, by the way, I mean, was he tooting it up for the Republicans? If he was, that explains a whole lot if you think about it for just a few moments here. And I'm not casting aspersions, I'm asking a question. Ma'am, you know what? If you could fill us in on that part right there, that would actually, that could actually answer a lot of questions when you think about it. Hell, they might want to give him 3, 4, 5 times the rate, by the way.
Now, please hear me. I'm not criticizing his judgment. The people of his county elected him to make that decision. In fact, let me put it on the record. He's someone I respect because he was always willing to hire diversity. He was just looking for quality. I don't care political party. They care about it. My only question is, why is it questioned then?
Okay, was he sleeping with dude? Because that's the real part folks are looking at. By the way, I mean, we asking that. Folks, one more thing. Did she ever say that the allegations are untrue? Did you catch that part with all that talking and all that filibustering and all that blubbering and yammering she doing? By the way, did she ever deny the allegation? I want y'all, you just heard what she had to say now, and she going all this talking and all this jaw jacking, but she never addressed what they actually said. And she never once says it's not true. Did you know she didn't say they're lying on me? She didn't say, dear Lord, my enemies are lying on me. She's saying, well, why are they questioning me doing it when all the white men been doing it all this time? What? Remember, I've taught you all, black politicians, unfortunately, that when the Democrats choose them or the political parties choose them, they choose them because they know that they are possessed of ego starvation, and they come into office saying, well, if the white dude's been getting away with it all this time, I want to get away with the same corrupt tactics that the white guys have been doing. So their priority, their sign of accomplishment for themselves is, can I get away with the same or worse corruption than the white folk did? Kwame Kilpatrick and the others, they saw the white dudes do it. Well, let me see if I can get away with the same thing or get away with worse. And so here she is, not saying that she didn't do it, saying, by the way, the white guys did this. She immediately, did you notice that? Let me tell y'all, when a Negro is scared is when they sit up here and immediately start going to work and start name dropping white folk.
I tell you, personal friend and great. I hired one white woman a good personal friend and great lawyer.
Yeah. You know a Negro is in trouble when they start saying, I got white friends. Y'all don't understand, I got white friends. But I does. You know that they're worried. You know that they're scared when they start talking like that. I got white friends. Then she starts giving the rundown of all her white friends. Y'all know what she's doing right now. What she's trying to do, she's trying to call in favors. She's trying to call in favors, folks. By name dropping these people, she's trying to rally support. She's trying to put the political establishment that dropped her into place. They dropped their little puppet in place. She thinks what she's doing is putting them on the spot. She thinks she's putting them on the spot. So if I just call it out and tell everybody what I've done and who I've done it for, well, you see, then y'all have to come support me. And what she doesn't realize here, they never realize it, by the way. They never realize it. Baby, you on your own. You see, they could get together and rig the game to give you a little old political appointment, but you're on your own. She doesn't understand it. She thinks that by invoking the great white spirits of the ancients, that she's somehow gathering them together for support. And baby, this shows how delusional these individuals are. You are on your own. You on your own in the belly of the beast. And let me go ahead and bring up one more thing right now, y'all. Let me go ahead and play this right quick because Fani the Mammy, let me show you that Fani the Mammy don't get the rules.
They only attacked one. I hired one white woman, a good personal friend and great lawyer. A superstar, I tell you. I hired one white man, brilliant, my friend, and a great lawyer.
I'm so glad that she speaks so highly of them, because do you all think that the political powers there would have any problem with appointing, by her own admission, a brilliant white female attorney to step in and replace her? What? After all, by her own admission, this other woman is brilliant and wonderful and qualified and well, that sounds like you setting up for this other woman to be named for them to put their support behind her. And do you all think that her white sister girl superstar friend, who she is heaping accolades on, do you think that she would have any problem whatsoever if the folks backstage gave her the nod and said, you know what, you'd make a good replacement for Fani since she's having all these issues. After all, Fani has just given you her ringing endorsement. Now, do you think that that white woman would have done the same for Fani and would have brought up, by the way, I have a brilliant black female on my staff here, future superstar, I tell ya? She literally just sat up here and named her replacement. In her desperation, just to show you how incompetent she is, in her desperation to gather a defense, she literally just named and endorsed her own replacement. She names a white woman and names a white man, and if both of those are chosen, if the state steps in and removes her, and both of them are either one of them are chosen to replace her, what can she say? What can she say? She called the white woman a superstar. She called the white man brilliant. Well, it sounds like, you know what, let's die down this controversy. You and your boyfriend go work your issues out. Why don't we get Miss Superstar or Mr. Brilliant to take over for you? Since you are apparently obviously compromised. Well, I have the right to choose this guy even if I'm having an affair with him. Okay, well, I have the right to choose this guy. All right, got that. Even if you're sleeping with him, you got the right to choose him even then? Well, I probably do. Okay. Boy, that looks hella bad. You know, the money that he's using to go on vacation with you, was that money that was given as a result of you choosing him? So you choose him to be a prosecuting attorney, you decide how much he gets paid, and then the two of you go off on vacation together? Perfectly legal. I don't know why y'all all down on me. I'm doing what the white dudes was doing. So the white dudes were taking old boy with them on vacation? The white dudes were sleeping with old boy and paying him so he could pay for the vacations? They were doing that too? You got to understand that some of the brain dead, zombified Democrat shill folk, they've been quiet about this. At first they was, there ain't no evidence of that. Now take a look for yourselves, folks. And I've been saying this the whole time. This is basic judicial 101. If the allegations were untrue, why didn't she just say that they were lies? She says a whole bunch of nothing, but what she doesn't say is, by the way, dear Lord, the folks who are lying on me, these false allegations, these phony allegations, there's nothing to it. I would never sleep with a married man. These people saying that I'm an adulteress. Notice she doesn't say a word about that. So she wants to name drop other folk and say things, and the fact that she's name dropping the people who are having an issue with her tells you how really scared she is. She realizes just that quickly, oh, you're just a puppet, you're just a tool. They can yank you and break you whenever they choose. She realizes just how delicate and fragile and vulnerable her position really is. So now she calls herself rallying black support. But what I'm saying is this is a damn insult. You come into a black church surrounded by black people and then come sing the praises of the white folk on your staff. It sounds like you need to go to a white church and get them white folks to go ahead and pony up for you, ma'am. Damn! What the hell you doing in a black church telling us about how great the white folk on your staff are? It sounds like you're trying to play us. If that's really the way you feel and they really superstars and they really a brain trust and they really brilliant, why ain't you over there in their church getting them to rally around you for support? Why are you sitting over here amongst black folk right after you sat up here and told them that the white cops who killed the black man at the drive-thru ain't no crime here? No problem here. Notice she ain't bringing that up. She knows she's in trouble. She knows she's in the lion's jaws. She knows she's in trouble, y'all. So to any of the brain dead, ignorant ass clowns who were in denial about this when I first brought it up, and there ain't nothing to that, how do you figure that? I was watching MSNBC and they say ain't nothing to it. Notice they done fell real quiet now. They've fallen real quiet all of a sudden. It didn't take them any time. They got real quiet real quick. See, that's what happens when you're dumb. When you're dumb, you're just a mascot and you pick up the flyer and woo-woo for our team. And then when the damn team gets steamrolled, the owners of the team go grab somebody else and your dumb ass is sitting here, got pounded into the damn pavement. But by the way, yeah, she never said that the allegations were untrue. Sat there this whole time trying to defend her boyfriend's right, her choice to choose him. Never said that the allegations were false. Never said it. Now, I've been saying that since day one. I pointed this out. I've been saying it the whole time. I've given you all the insight and analysis you'll receive nowhere else. I'm not going to have you all go out there and look stupid. And if this woman actually, if there was no issue with this, she wouldn't have responded the way she did. First of all, Trump's people wouldn't have said anything. Well, Trump's partner wouldn't have said anything. The attorneys said something because they're like, oh, by the way, yeah, we're not looking at the political case. We couldn't help but notice that dude you're with, you've been subpoenaed in another case. That was what they noticed. And when you saw that happen, it's like, by the way, people who don't know anything about the law, people who don't know anything about this stuff here, and they just follow whatever political pundits on cable TV tell them, they're used to looking dumb. These are the folks in 2016. Hillary Clinton, bad trouble in here. That's what they do. And they're used to looking dumb. They're used to looking dumb on a daily basis. They would be sitting right there in that church with her right now. You go, sister girl. Meanwhile, she ain't going to a white church to see if she can peel off some support over there. She isn't doing that over there now, is she? Man, it's a trip how the world keep turning. However, you might disagree. Therefore, the telephone lines are now open. The number is 646-787-1933. That's 646-787-1933. Your personal access code to the program that has redefined the black media, the 720 degrees of analysis that you'll receive absolutely nowhere else, and the insight that puts you ahead of the curve. So all of you who followed what we do here, you look smart, you look brilliant, you look ahead of things. And now you've heard from Fani the Mammy herself that, by the way, she could have refuted this. She calls together a whole bunch of folks, and what you see is she brought them together for political support. She went to a church to get political support. What she didn't even attempt to do was to make a legal argument. She just sat there in that church and said, why is they down on me? Woe is me, they down on me's. Why ain't they doing the white men's like this? But what she didn't say is, by the way, they're lying on me. She's just saying, well, the white guys did it. The white guys are able to do it. Why are they down on me? Want to send a shout out here to Bruce, to Latanya, and Walter, and everyone else here who's contributed to support tonight's program on PayPal or Venmo. Thank you very much for your support. We appreciate that. We're going to go ahead and get over here to the telephone lines. The number is 646-787-1933. Let me get caller from area code 417. You're on live with the Black Channel. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Al from Springfield, Missouri.
Al from Springfield. What's on your mind?
Not too bad. As we get ready to celebrate tomorrow's Dr. Martin Luther King National Holiday, two questions. How the hell did we let our enemies and other groups get a hold of his message by basically allowing people from Palestinians, having this major march? We're getting ready to have a march out in St. Louis in support of the Palestinian situation. And second, my question is that the civil rights movement of the 1960s, in my opinion, I think there was a mistake. I think we let too many people, like, the A. Philip Randolph, the Ed Bloom type of Zionist people involved, because they basically hijacked, what was supposed to be for black freedmen and free women, and everything. I want to get your take on what happened to
what you
civil
have
rights
there,
in the 1950s.
First of all, as far as the Palestinians is concerned, like I say, that's been going on for the longest time here. In the internet era, they're just very, very vocal about it. So it doesn't really have anything to do with us, but expecting to be out there 24/7. As far as the civil rights era is concerned, folks long before me started talking about this, when you have an unsophisticated way of looking at these things, when you are not acknowledging or understanding that these are the folks who are playing chess, not checkers, when you let the very people who have been in your obstacles, who've been an obstacle or have been fighting against you, when you let them frame the terms of the discussion, then just look for a bunch of trick bag language and a bunch of trick bag things to get tossed in. What we're finding out here is that Dr. Claude Anderson and others, even before him, they were correct the whole time. That the civil rights laws were put together with a bunch of loopholes in them that were specifically making sure that they actually were very limited in their ability. So think of them, what these were legal, judicial, legislative pressure release valves. What happened was that they gave black folk, black folk obviously were excluded from the marketplace, economically oppressed. So what they did was they created a method whereby which they could control our economy. So you have a bunch of government jobs, which are given out at their discretion, not ours. And you have black folk becoming economically dependent in that manner, as opposed to having an independent economic base that isn't dependent on how a politician feels about you or how a white corporation feels about you. So whenever they want to get black folk out the streets, what's the first thing they do? Well, we'll throw out a few jobs and we'll go get a black face to be our head of human resources, and we'll do some commercials on TV, or we'll get Norman Lear to steal some ideas from you all and put it on television. So this is a program that runs all the time. They repeat it and rinse and repeat it every couple of decades here, because every couple of decades we take to the streets. Now, what the difference has been is that in the last decade or so, since the rise of the new black media, we have been focused on a laser beam about black economics. Now, everyone has acknowledged this. They all acknowledge it, and this is why from Joe Biden to Ed Blum, they're all fighting it, because they're like, okay, we thought this was a fad that was going to go away. We're just going to have to sit here and fight this out. That's where we're at today, because my real thing is not about the old church folk. My real thing is take a look at the national conversation that's going on. And the national conversation that's happening is this. So the civil rights generation, what you've learned is they were sitting in the room with a bunch of white politicians and white attorneys, and they were playing the game of being humble. So there's another issue that we had. You got to have bold folk who are in there who are going to have the guts to create some awkward moments and say, no, this needs to say black. And this needs to say specifically who it is for, because we are held to the letter of the law, not the intent of it. These other folks assured us that by saying civil rights, that the intent of the law would protect us. Now what you're finding out is these folks are going to the Supreme Court and talking about, no, the letter of the law. And then you're finding out just how quickly that can be flipped around. Now, even though they're lying about even what the letter of the law is saying, just understand it's a lot easier when you come in the front door and have it spelled out exactly and specifically what the problem is and specifically what the remedy needs to be. When it's LGBT, Asians, anybody else, they don't leave it open to interpretation. They come up straight at the middle, and this is exactly what it needs to be. What we're finding out is the peril of not doing that. I'll let you have the last word.
Yes. So let me ask you this question. Malcolm X, said that we needed human rights and not civil rights. You think human rights would have made a difference, or just it was all talk?
No, I want you to understand the difference between giving a speech that is intended to educate and elucidate the masses versus a legislative agenda. So, folks, please don't get tricked into the fallacy of thinking that a speech by Malcolm or Martin or Medgar or anybody else was a legislative document. So there are times where they're talking to people that, like, for example, this isn't even a conversation that me and Malcolm would need to have. We wouldn't have to even talk about this. Neither would me and Martin. We already know that. The purpose of them having their speeches and the purpose of them having their visits and things is to educate the masses. Remember, long before the internet or whatever, the mass media, the news media is telling you everything's all right. If Malcolm or Martin didn't show up, black folk, for the most part, didn't even have a communication apparatus that communicated amongst people at large of what the problem was. Dr. King has to explain to black folk about the Homestead Act and about what they did for European immigrants, because black folk are looking at themselves as poor and don't even understand why they're there, with the white folk telling them you just ain't worked hard enough. So that's the reason for him to go over that brief history lesson, is to educate you. The history lesson is not for the purposes of getting legislation or to be a legislative document. It's part of that education effort, which is exactly what we're doing today. As sad as it can sometimes be to admit that, a lot of black folk don't know the nuts and bolts of these things. Even when we say we need reparations, a lot of them are very bashful. That's the reason why I created the phrase cut the check. A lot of black folk were bashful about saying we need cash reparations. Now, I wasn't bashful, and a lot of you were not, but the average person was. So the hashtag cut the check, it only means that's just another way of saying cash payments. And that's why when everybody else uses it, now they're not nearly as afraid to say cut the check. That's something they can get with. That's that education effort. Thank you very much for giving us a call tonight. So just recognize the difference between educating people versus a legislative agenda or something like that. That's not what the speech is there for. So what he's talking to them for is for something different than what you're alluding to. Let me get called from America 646. You're on live with the Black Channel. What's your name? Where you calling from?
It's Onan from Queens.
Onan from Queens. What's on your mind?
Yes, sir. Brother, I wanted to ask you, do you think the speeches given by Fani, Willis, and people like AOC, where they adopt a black scent, do you think that's subconscious, or do you think it's intentional upon the speaker in order to create a lingua franca or a bridge language to connect with the audience, rather than
when you are confident, you don't have to change the way you speak. When you're confident, when you are not confident, when you feel vulnerable, you start putting extras on it. And when folks do those kind of things, what they're showing is they're not comfortable in their own skin and they're not confident where they are. Now, it shows two things. Number one, that they are not confident in themselves, but number two, that they don't really have respect for you. That they can't just come talk to us the way they do everyone else. That we won't hear things unless it's got a hip hop kick drum going to it and somebody's twerking or something. So what they're showing is their contempt for you, that they see you as a caricature. Now, when they go show up to white folks, they don't show up to white folks looking like Honey Boo Boo. They don't show up to white folks looking like the Country Music Channel. They don't show up to white folks looking like Surfer Girl. They don't do that over there. They don't show up to white folk talking like Ned Flanders. Hiddly hi, Billy bye. They don't go off and do that. So that what that shows you is that they do understand, but when they see you as a problem. And the other thing is they're hoping to appeal to you emotionally. Understand this now. They are hoping to, what they're doing by trying to use those tactics, they're trying to have some sort of ethnic familiarity with your ethnic familiarity, because they're trying to turn on your emotions. They don't want you to listen to their words. They want you to listen to their feeling behind it. So while you sitting there sister girling and she in the struggle and why is they downs on me, your feelings will engage, or at least they're hoping they will, so that you ignore the fact that, by the way, I wasn't feeling your words. I was busy listening to them. I couldn't help but notice you never said that they were wrong. You never said that they're lying on you. Now, the folks sitting there sister girling, they're not listening to a word she's saying. They're too busy trying to vibe and neck jerk. But for those of us who are not, for those of us for your failed black scent didn't affect us any, we actually listened to your words. So that's basically the reason why they use those tactics. The good news is it fails, and it fails even more because now she did it at that church. But by the way, you're going to have a lot more folk who watch me. And this is us dissecting it and deciphering it. And this is why Kamala Harris stopped doing it too, by the way. Please keep that in mind. Kamala Harris. It's specifically because of us that Kamala Harris stopped doing that. When's the last time you all saw her try to turn on the sister girl routine?
Yeah, that's a good point. It's a very good point. I think it has a lot to do with connecting with the audience, right? So you all have what is known as a call and response, and this is something that you would hear a lot in speeches, whether it be in black churches or even in music, where the person who's talking, they elicit a certain emotional response from the audience. So like you said, it's not like people are listening to the words. It's more like an appeal to the emotions. But I'm glad that you're addressing that.
Well, that worked for the old black
there.
church crowd. Thank you very much for giving us a call tonight. That's always worked on the old black church crowd. The old black church crowd wants to feel things. The old black church crowd, we just got to be brutally honest, they were very open and very receptive to political entertainment. So as far as they were concerned, the Elvis Presley thing appealed to them. The Elvis Presley politician who wasn't afraid, they were used to white folks sneaking around on them. So that carries a whole lot of social cachet. Look it up. That carries a whole lot of social weight with them, for white people to acknowledge them, because they spent decades with white people not acknowledging them, white people treating them like a dirty little secret. So for them, it has an incredible amount of credibility to have white people openly acknowledge them, be seen with them, take pictures with them. For them, that carries a lot of weight, y'all. For them, they see that as not a win, but a huge win if white folks acknowledge them. They look at us like we're crazy because we don't see the value in it, because there is none. So just recognize why they put such a huge premium on it and what it really means to them. Caller from area code 469, you're on live with the Black Channel. What's your name? Where you calling from?
This is Thomas calling from Dallas, Texas.
Thomas from Dallas, what's on your mind?
Ooh, Jason. I mean, just definitely January is definitely coon hunting season. I mean, they going after these Negroes fast and right smack dab in the middle and beginning of the year. I mean, what's disrespectful about what she did, man? She went to a black church begging white people for her job at a black church. Man, how disrespectful can you be to do that? And on top of that, she was sticking her chest out, when as long as she was going after Young Thug and all that. But when she went after Donald Trump and she made him come to Atlanta, I knew then. I said, "Oh, she done messed up," because one thing about white supremacists, they know a lot of evil people, man. They're gonna dig in your history. They're gonna find out something that you've been doing, and they're gonna bring it up on you. And she thought she was a white woman, and they're gonna always let these coons know that you ain't white. And when we done with you, we're gonna break you. And not only are we gonna break you, we're gonna eat you at the same time.
Well, remember, I explained this last night that the legal community, they have conversations we're not privy to. They know things. They hear things. They know what's going on with the judges and the clerks. And if politicians are calling, they know. And what I'm telling you is that the stuff that we haven't heard yet, the phone calls that have been made, the inquiries that have been made, she's already heard them. She knows. Look, just understand something. The governor of Georgia, was it Brian Kemp? He's been monitoring this the whole time. She is very well aware that everybody is looking at her, and anybody who's making a phone call regarding her actions, she's finding out. And what I'm advising you all and informing you all of is that by her showing how shook and scared she is here, they've already let her know they're out for her.
Yeah.
They've already let her know, we have no intention of you seeing this through. What they just did, just understand, what they just did was Elliot Spitzer her. That's what they did. I mean, come on, they Elliot Spitzer her. That it's like, okay, we're going to find something you're doing in your personal life here and tie this to what you're doing professionally, and that'll be the end of you. So anyway, she sees the writing on the wall. She knows that legally speaking, this is terrible. This isn't bad. This is awful. She knows that something like this, let's say if what it is, because she's mischaracterizing the events. No, ma'am, this could endanger your license.
Right.
Oh, ma'am, they're not playing with you. This is not a shot across your bow. This could endanger your license. Now, she's trying to downplay it and this, that, and the other. It's like, oh, no, ma'am. No, it's just that serious. It really, really could. That's why she wants to minimize it. That's why she came to that church trying to galvanize political support, but did not make an argument that, by the way, this didn't happen. I'm not sleeping with this man. What they're saying is untrue. She didn't say any of that. That's what lets them know, oh, we got you where we want you. Now, here's the thing. The documents from that divorce case, I believe it is, have been sealed, but I want to say that The story is a little convoluted here, so I was looking for an article that I can show you all because I've seen it from others. But basically, as I understand it, the lawyers for this guy, Roman, who's an associate of Trump, who's also, indicted down there too, his lawyers saw the documents, the divorce things they're making, the allegations, before they were sealed. Well, as officers of the court, they can't talk about something that's sealed, even if they saw it already. So what they want to do is get the documents unsealed so they can go ahead and go in on her, is what they're trying to do. So right now, she's hoping that doesn't occur. She doesn't really want this to be them airing her out publicly over this, about all the gruesome details, because as you all know, you're really under the gun, because this is a situation where we don't know how far back this goes. We don't know who it involves. And in a divorce case, as you know, it's no holds barred. Anything goes. So if your wife is coming after you, she's coming after you. She's coming after you. And just any skeletons in the closet, her attorney is going to be like, oh, you can't afford to cover up anything. If you go for him, you got to go for the jugular. You got to, because in a divorce case, you're really only going to get one pass at them. So whatever you're going to get, you got to go for everything. So you might be able to get your boyfriend to dummy up, but can you get his wife to dummy up? Can you get her to be quiet? Can you get her to keep your secrets? You might be able to get her husband to be quiet about what you and him was doing. Yeah, but can you get the wife to be quiet about what you were doing with her husband, and for how long? And for anything else she might know? Can you get her to be quiet? So just understand, she obviously, and this is what I was saying last night, these are big head Negroes who consider themselves to be above the law. They're smarter than everybody else. Take a look at her. She thinks she's brilliant. In reality, she's just a dumb puppet. She thinks she's smart, and what she's finding out is, oh, I'm not very bright. I'm not very bright. And they just that quickly, they show, yeah, we've always had you where we wanted you. We've always had you where we wanted you. And anytime you get out of line, you will. Oh, well, I'll side with the Democrats. Actually, this is not a Democrat or Republican thing. That's what this dumb wench is finding out now. This is not a Democrat or Republican thing. This is not a right wing or left wing thing. This is a white thing. And she's found out that she's run afoul of the white folk. And now she's pleading for mercy. And in reality, you already see what this is shaping up as. Mark my words, people. Before this is over, the conversation will shift to her law license. I'll let you have the last word.
Well, the Trump's lawyers are already talking about using this against her to drop the charges. And if I was Young Thug lawyers, I would be doing the same thing. I mean, yeah, they really dig everything on her, man. So it's coon season, man. I'm gonna sit back and watch these coons get eaten. Eric Adams, Brandon Johnson, all of them are next, man. So. Yeah, B1, man.
Thank you very much for giving us a call tonight. And it's not Trump and his lawyers you need to be concerned about. Remember, people, it is the state of Georgia that is prosecuting this. So it's Brian Kemp and the politicians of Georgia you need to be concerned about. Remember Georgia, that state that Roland Martin promised us all was going purple and then going blue, remember? Remember that? All of a sudden now his dumb flabby ass is shutting up about that. But by the way, no, this isn't even about Trump anymore. He's not the one you need to keep an eye on. It's the politicians in Georgia. Because remember, this is a state issue. I know it's a presidential campaign, but it's a state issue. And it is the state legislature in Georgia that's like, yeah, we're not happy with her. Those are the ones you got to watch out for now. Caller from area code 415. You're on live with the Black Channel. What's your name? Where you calling from?
Hi, this is Denise in San Francisco.
Denise in San Francisco, what's on your mind?
Now that I see Ed Bloom up there, it reminds me of why I dropped out of the National Organization for Women, the ACLU, and the NAACP. Now, back when I was a member of NOW, I had a big blow up with them about women's economic rights. They were talking about being equal with a man. And I was saying, wait a minute, we'll be equal to a whole lot of things if we clearly establish women's economic rights upon this system. But they didn't want to hear that, so I dropped out. Now, the ACLU, I couldn't figure out where their meetings were. I wasn't getting contact about their meetings, and I was calling them up, and I wasn't finding out nothing, okay? Then they was talking about the rights of people to run across the border and get benefits. And I was like, wait a minute, the citizens here don't have all of their rights. The citizens that are already here are under attack with hate groups. What are you people talking about? So me and the ACLU fell out. Okay, then the NAACP. Now, when Ed Bloom raises his head, where's the NAACP at? Where are the people at? As soon as they take some monies off these corporations and something happens to a black person or black person's rights, they're quiet. Okay? A good example is what happens at Wells Fargo.
Well,
Once they take money off of Wells Fargo and you're working there and you come under attack, the NAACP is going to be quiet.
Well, that's a very good point, because here's the issue. They can't really say very much about those folks because they're looking to get money from them. So
That's
if
right.
you sit up here and do a takedown of Wells Fargo or Chase or whatever, you're looking for, how are you going to expect them to do a takedown of them, and those are their sponsors? So there's the reason why you don't hear very much from them in that regard. I'll let you have the last word.
Well, I don't hear nothing about them even mentioning Ed Blum and what he's doing. It's like we got to get another legal civil rights group to even begin to address the people like Ed Blum's, because I don't even think the leaders of the NAACP even have the brain power to even think about what to do about him.
Thank you very much for giving us a call tonight. Let me get caller from area code 704. You're on live with the Black Channel. What's your name? Where you calling from?
Bobby, Charlotte, North Carolina.
Okay, Bobby in Charlotte, what's on your mind?
I've got a question. The question is, if we're to avoid these court challenges where black people are losing the argument legally due to race-based policies, consequently, should black Americans be more focused on lineage-based set-asides and tangibles from our government and businesses alike?
Yes.
Okay. And the only
But however,
really,
yes, that is true. However, that one is not immune from legal assault either. Because you have to understand something. This is why it's been so successful, and this is why, like, if you listen to a Malcolm or a Martin or whatever, this is why educating people about these things is important, so they understand that when you do want to make these pushes, we're all on the same page. Remember, there's only one group of people in this society that we don't acknowledge or recognize by their race: white people. They go out of their way to make sure that you talk about black folk and minorities and everything else, but white, we don't really speak about being white in America. They speak about being American. And so it is understood. Well, we're the dominant society, so no, we are now invisible. But that becomes a weapon that you use, because at that point, they then say, now that we control everything, race no longer matters. Well, once you say that, well, that's okay if you are in a just society that does not discriminate against people based on their race. But you see, it's always been that way. It's just now that you have dominated everything, you're like, okay, let's not talk about race anymore. Well, that also is going to extend to lineage, because, for example, you wouldn't be able to say Irish. Okay, we want to do something for Irish people, or we want to do something for these folks over here. That's what's under assault now. So just understand where this is really going. Their ultimate argument is going to be, we shouldn't give anything to anybody under any sort of title or because of any sort of incidental characteristic or historical characteristic for that matter. We shouldn't do that. So everybody should just be, quote, left alone, even though they understand, they already know. So yeah, we got you dominated and you need to be left alone under our boots. So what you're saying there, certainly we are going to continue to push the lineage line. We're going to continue that because that is what distinguishes us, and that is our distinction, because not doing so has been weaponized against us. So that's why we're going to continue doing that. But don't be under any illusions That's what this is a strategy against as well. This is a strategy that will also attack lineage also, because they're like, oh, we see what you did there. And what they'll just simply say is that there shouldn't be any acknowledgement of anything, no matter what has been done historically. So that's going to be the tactic they're going to use here. That's all. Hell, they're already starting. That's a given.
Okay. Well, I'll land my plane.
Thank you very much for giving us a call here. Like I say, folks, definitely understand the purpose of promoting the lineage argument, but also understand what it does, but also what it does not do. The lineage argument is not invincible. The lineage argument is a specific one that holds up for specific circumstances, for specific things we're pushing for. But don't be fooled. Don't be misled. They're going to target that one too. They're going to target that one too. This is not about fairness. This is not about justice. This is not about law. This is about white supremacy. I'm white and I say so is coming for lineage also. What they're going to have to, here's the problem for them. As far as they're concerned, if they can't knock down the racial arguments, then they won't have any standing to be able to go after the lineage argument either. They know the lineage argument is much stronger than the racial one. So what they're really trying to do is normalize targeting us. Well, if you can knock down the racial one there, now you've completely legitimized targeting us. And then it makes it easier to ignore the fact that the lineage one is already protected. Well, now we can just ignore that too. So just remember what this is really about. This is not about law. This is about normalizing targeting us outside of the law. Caller Mary Code 229, you're on live with the Black Channel. What's your name? Where you calling from?
Good evening, brother. This is Rob from Valdosta.
Rob from Valdosta, what's on your mind?
Yeah, I was sitting here listening to your broadcast, and I'm also watching the game, and the thought crossed my mind. I want to know what you think about it. With all these professional teams that's majority black from coast to coast, football and basketball, if they were to get together and build communities, these are multimillionaires we're talking about, from Miami to LA, don't you think we would have more Black Wall Streets? And by them being professional athletes, they're not just rich, they are famous. So they could use their cachet to force to put pressure on these financial institutions and the government to give them the loans to open contract companies.
Well, I mean, they don't even need loans in that case. They don't even need loans for that. I mean, look, what you're saying is absolutely correct, but just remember, we have social pressure that we can bring to bear on the entertainer class, but we lack a lot of things outside of that. So there are things that can be done, and yes, absolutely, I pointed this out before. What happens is these athletes who are just well-paid employees, let's be clear, they're not power brokers, they're well-paid employees. They are not your best and brightest. They are hand-selected. Your best and brightest athletes don't get drafted to these teams. You get drafted as long as you can be a useful, obedient tool, not because you got the best stats. It's a big misnomer. Having the best stats is not how you get in professional leagues. Whether you are a good little soldier who does what you're told running up and down the field, that's what gets you into the league. Not having the best shooting score, the best three-point score. They'll leave you sitting right there in college sports and then claim you were undraftable for whatever reason. So recognize what that is. The sports leagues are made up of the most compliant, and the music business today is made up of straight up whores, mammies, and bootlicks. So they're choosing those people, and to be totally honest with you, they're really ceremonial. Now, it would be nice if some of these high-profile Negroes certainly push the line on these things, and they certainly consider it to be nice when the system comes after them. They wish they had support, and what happens is most of them usually go down bad because they have no support. Well, you didn't help to engender any, so when they come for you, down you go. But I'll also say one more thing, brother. You don't have non-black people expecting anything from their entertainment class except for them to shut up. Now think about that for a few moments. Asian society is not expecting anything from Yao Ming. I know he ain't still playing, but they just got a guy in professional baseball. Asian society is not expecting anything from him. Latino society is not expecting anything from Alex Rodriguez or the others. These other folks are not sitting up there saying, boy, we'd be in a better position if Alex Rodriguez would just speak up to us. They're not doing that. So would it be helpful and nice? Sure it would. Would it be great? Absolutely. Do they have an obligation to do so? I certainly think so, morally and socially. But by the same token, I don't want to overstate the value of it either. Because what we need to have is a black entrepreneurial class that is not dependent on the high-paid employees of these white companies. So as individuals, we get a lot more bang for our buck from a place like the Turkey Leg Hut or Sophia's. We get a lot more bang for our buck from that than we do from whatever LeBron is doing. You get a lot more from that. And furthermore, when you have enough black folk get together like that, they get to put pressure on the folks who really matter, like these people's agents. See, we're not thinking strategically in that regard. LeBron James is going to do whatever his agent tells him. You want to change things, put pressure on Rich Paul. You have a way to put pressure on them, and that's the athletes follow that. Think about them like politicians. So if you really want to put pressure down, just recognize where we really need to go. Thank you very much for giving us a call. Now, let me get caller area code 951. You're on live with the Black Channel. What's your name? Where you calling from? Okay, caller from 951 has been abducted. Let me get caller from area code 301. You're on live with the Black Channel. What's your name? Where you calling from?
Hey, I'm calling. This is Charles calling from D.C. How you doing?
Charles from D.C. What's on your mind?
Yeah, it's kind of sad that I know the last caller meant well, but it just seems that we are overindulged with the entertainment aspect. There's so much we focus too much on it. I honestly do not want any entertainers to be in the forefront. Malcolm X talked about this. That where he said in the quote, and I'm paraphrasing, where is an entertainer in a white community? And you talk about the Asian community and such. They don't put their entertainers and sports people on the front lines. They get the people who actually are for the front lines and are just in the front lines. They're not we're not going to sit back and have people who can do a song or a dance. Or
that's another version of relying on hand-selected people. We don't have any control over who gets a record contract. We don't have any control over who goes on this night show. We don't have any control over who gets cast for the Avengers. So by definition, looking to that person for anything is a non-starter because that person was selected for reasons that have nothing to do with you and were not influenced by you. So chasing after them for anything is really going to be a red herring. And because they don't have anything, they were chosen as employees. What you really want is something that you control, something that you have built and you control that serves your agenda, and you can make it do whatever you want it to do, as opposed to relying on someone who's being arbitrarily chosen by institutions or individuals who you don't know their agenda, or in the worst case, you do know their agenda and it's bad, and they haven't expressed any affinity for you. How can you rely on someone like that? They're just an employee of somebody else, and they can be cut off at any time. Relative to you or me, they have more disposable income and so on and so forth. That's true. But by the same token, they didn't generate that themselves. So it's a very good argument there. We can't rely on them. We shouldn't rely on them. And if you had a black entrepreneurial class, you wouldn't have to rely on these high-paid entertainers, but furthermore, you would have more influence over them because they would be looking to you to do deals and make money because now you have leverage. So instead of us complaining about that, even though they're valid arguments, the solution isn't to expect LeBron James to find religion. The solution is to let him know that he's publicly speaking out when he's off code. We will always do that. By the same token, okay, if LeBron won't work with us, why don't we make a lot more effort to work with each other? I'll let you have the last word.
Yeah. And the worst thing about that, the apparatus of white supremacy that is controlling the narrative. I mean, you had Dr. Cresswell, who had one big interview with Donahue, and after that, she said, the name of it, white supremacy, and that was it. She was done. Sister Soldier, she had some criticisms, and then you got Bill Clinton coming there. People call him the first black president or whatever. So basically calls her a Klansman and just shut her down right there. It's just that you have to know the people who are going to be listened to, the ones who should be listened to, are the ones who are maligned by the media, who are benign, and the ones who are...
Well, having an apparatus that you can speak to beyond that, because being on Donahue is nice, but the real problem isn't being on there. If you're not going to be hosting the program, it's going to have limited impact. When you have your own communication apparatus, your own communication network, your own communication, I don't want to use the word stars, but certainly notable individuals, the Gil Nobles and things like that. When you have that in place, that allows an ongoing conversation, which is what we really need to have. The Dr. Francis Cress Welsings can't host a program every week. Furthermore, nor should they. But that's what you have a Jason Black for, or a Rock Newman or something like that. And that's what needs to be used. So the issue isn't going on Donahue. The issue is having your own infrastructure in place with your own personalities who will conduct those conversations. Thank you very much for giving us a call tonight. Let me get a caller from area code 860. You're on live with the Black Channel. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hello, Jason. It's me, Roland, from coming out of New Haven this time, moving around. I wanted to respond to the civil rights thing that was going on with Ed Blum specifically. We need to be looking at the NAACP as one of the culpable parties for selling us out when it comes to our civil rights and stuff of that nature, them conspiring with the AAPI community based off their website, them basically telling them, giving up the ghost or the secret when it comes to the civil rights bills and the stuff that our ancestors fought for. They ended up flipping that information and giving it to this guy, Ed Blum, to dismantle it. So they need to be cutting the check to the NAACP as well as some of those other civil rights organizations. The other thing is, I do want to second you on that. Ed Blum is setting up the case to try to dismantle lineage-based reparations, and he's doing that through one of the articles I sent it to you on to your Yahoo. He specifically mentions race and ethnicity as one and the same when they don't mean one and the same. So that was some of the things that I've been observing, and I've been watching them from the shadows, and this guy needs to be stopped. However it means it needs to be done, like legally.
Well, definitely the biggest thing here is to make sure that we talk about these things publicly, to identify who the bad actors are. The NAACP, I mean, folks, the NAACP is they're a non-issue. Please, I mean, what? Somebody show me the last substantive thing that the NAACP did for its own benefit. Forget for the rest of us. What has it done for itself? So it's hard for me to be offended by the NAACP, which at this point is an obsolete organization. I mean, I can't get any more upset about the NAACP today than I could about the Kiwanis Club. So maybe at one time you were this major mover or whatever, but as it stands today, that's not the case. Now, you may be new around here, so let me take this as an opportunity to remind folks here. For my emails, I get a lot of emails, but most of them unsolicited. So if people just send me emails at random, I'm not going to get a whole lot done. So if folks want to talk to me, I have a way that they can contact me, whatever. If they want to ask about an email, maybe then. But if you just start spamming in the email and just showing up, hey, Jason, I thought you should see this, just be aware my filters are going to block you. So keep in mind, folks, if you want to avoid that, from occurring, thank you very much for giving us a call. Calm down. If you want to avoid that, folks, he's a very pushy individual. People, that's the kind of thing we want to avoid. If you want to do that kind of thing there, like I say, you can just give me a call if it's worth discussing there. Because, by the way, as you know, 9 times out of 10, I'm already going to be aware of that. So let's just keep it classy. If you really want me to have the ability to even see what's happening here, you don't want to have information overload. That's the reason for that. So if I just let folks just send me emails at random, I'm literally going to have dozens of emails a day, and there's just no way I could get to all that. Let me get caller from area code 908. You're on live with the Black Channel. What's your name? Where you calling from?
My name is Omar, calling from Trenton.
All right.
Trenton, New Jersey.
Omar from Trenton, what's on your mind?
I got a question. Why do our black politicians, especially our black mayors, why is it seems like they get caught up in the same trap that every other black mayor has been caught up in? You know what I'm saying? Like, you would think they would have a sense of awareness from Kwame Kilpatrick, from Tony Mack in Trenton, from Ray Nagin, from all these other mayors that have got caught up in some type of scandal or locked up. Why do these individuals continue to think and that they can do a scandal and they're not going to come and get them? Why are y'all?
Because they're all indoctrinated from the same places, brother. These are not folks who were raised around us. Kamala Harris wasn't raised around the soil. Barack Obama wasn't raised around the soil. The rest of these folks weren't raised around the soil. So these were the Simone Sanders. These are the little girls the little black girls who are in class. And to show you what the dominant society does, they start looking at you early. They start pointing you out early. They start singling you out early. So you get taken to the side. You go to the spelling bees. You go to the little get-togethers that they have. So they take these little black girls and send them off on their own. And so from an early age, white society understands the value of acknowledging black people. They understand that black folks put a disproportionate amount of importance and, quite frankly, joy on white people giving them acknowledgement, that it literally changes the brain patterns when they acknowledge you. So with that being the case, just understand Simone Sanders, that's why I showed pictures of her in high school with Bill Clinton sitting there. Can you see the chick who's going to be on MSNBC looking all crazy in 20 years? And sure enough, there she is. This is grooming. So the Fani Willises and the Marilyn Mosbys and the Keisha Bottoms, yeah, they might live among black folk, but then they gonna sit here and get promoted behind the scenes. These are conversations going behind the scenes. These are conversations going on behind the scenes. And with that being the case here, I want you to recognize that the conversations that are had with them are markedly different from the ones with us. So they're not hearing any of these things, the scrutiny that you come under. Fani Willis able to take a look at the fact that how she got brought into office. That was the result of behind the scenes conversations. You know you are a nigger gal. You're not like the others. And she's like, yes, a boss. And then as soon as she gets in the office and has her ass in the crack, she comes scrambling to black folk, a place that she's never been before. So you say, well, how is it they do that, brother? Because these people are selected. They're handpicked. They've been groomed the whole time. When I talk about the legal community talking to each other, the education community does the same thing. Fani Willis, Simone Sanders, Keisha Bottoms, they all their fifth grade teachers can vouch for their bootlicking credentials. Barack Obama, Andrew Gillum, Cory Booker, all of their third grade teachers literally can vouch for their bootlicking credentials. Literally. The political parties can literally go talk to their third grade teachers, and their third grade teachers will vouch for them that this nigga ain't gonna make no trouble. His parents were solid people. Like getting into the mafia, like getting into the FBI. They can do a full-blown social background check on these folks, and these people gonna check out every time. So none of these, they want to give you the illusion that these people worked their way up to getting acknowledged or whatever. They were handpicked by the political parties and then thrown in front of you, and here's your candidate. And these folks have been blinded because they've been getting all these little compliments and pats on the back and these little awards and these little certificates. They've been getting that their whole lives, and that has been enough to convince them, nigga, I'm in. The rest of you on the outside, but I'm in. And they go parading through life, and the folks who put them there are just sitting there the whole time like they bought it. Got another one. They got a conveyor belt of them. And they will sit there and do that. Now, because they got compliments and they believe them. They bought into the hype because they want to believe that they're special. But there's also another side to this. The other side is that these individuals, they kind of got a little bit of an eye. They got a little bit of an eye on Zaddy. It's like, hey, you're a little shady sometimes. You're a little shady sometimes, Zaddy. So I got my little bit of an eye on you here, just in case you ever decide to turn on me. So what they then tell themselves is, but I'm smarter than them. I'm smarter than Nagin. I'm smarter than Mosby. I'm smarter than Kilpatrick. I'm smarter than them. Yeah, you got those others, but it wasn't because you're so great. It's because they were dumb. I'm smarter than them. Duvall, what's his name? Not Duvall Patrick, Patterson, who was the lieutenant governor in New York, blind, and they got him up out of there. They're like, yeah, get your blind ass up on out of here. You can't see, don't worry. One of the security guards will walk you to the door. Yeah, and then after him, remember there was the other black fella after that. They got a 2-for-1 sale there. Lieutenant governor, another black lieutenant governor, we talked about that before, they got him up out of there. Or at least he wanted to be. They grabbed him and away he's gone. Well, yeah, brother, they select these flawed individuals. The parties don't select people who actually represent us. They select people who will obey them and then tell you, okay, they're fully vetted by us. And then they just stick them in place. These individuals are either fully delusional and figure, well, if I hold my head low, I'll be all right. Or they figure, well, don't worry, they'll come after me one day, but let me just go ahead and I'm smarter than the rest of these guys, so they won't catch me. They won't be able to do me in. And if they do, I'll blow this whole damn thing up. And that's what Fani Willis is trying to do now, and it won't work. So that was the detailed explanation of why you see them over and over again, despite the voluminous, obvious, glaring track record that this doesn't work. You ain't smart, you ain't slick, you ain't special. And they're sitting there telling you, I smart, I slick, I special.
Do you think that you can tell if the mayor is of good quality depending on if they're trying to attack him? I remember Coleman Young in Detroit, and he was being interviewed, and the interviewer was basically trying to...
No, being attacked by the press. Remember, the press attacks everybody. They just save their useful tools for last. But they eventually come and attack you too. So attacking people isn't the metric you should look for. Don't look for the presence or absence of bad. Look for the presence of good. Marion Barry was solid because of what was happening on the streets. Marion Barry was solid because of what the people knew. Marion Barry was solid because of that. Ron Kirk in Dallas, for the most part, was solid because of that. So that's what you really look for. You don't look for the presence or absence of bad as far as the dominant society criticizing them or whatever. You look for the presence of good among the people. See, if your name is good, folks should be able to speak on your works. They should be able to speak on what you've done. They should be able to do that. And this is another reason why they have fought so hard to make sure that the only time we get together and have a conversation is on some buck dancing juke joint and stuff. But for us to have serious conversations among ourselves where we vet these people and measure them, they don't want to have that. They don't want that. To them, that's the scariest thing in the world, is that we have substantive conversations about the qualities and personalities and character traits of these individuals. From there, you start making decisions that are driven by your interests and not somebody else's. Simply something as revolutionary as having a conversation amongst each other to say, by the way, who vouches for this person? Who knows them? See, we've been told we can't ask that. If we had asked that in 2007 about Barack Obama, a whole new ball game. Problem, Chicago being as corrupt as it is, nobody was asking that. Nobody was asking that. Bobby Rush was trying to hold on to his little seat, but nobody was asking that. Nobody asked, by the way, who vouches for him? Who goes there? Whose man is this? Now, if you want to move in on a block or something else like that, folks are vetting you and wanting to know who knows you. And yet these people want to be your political leaders, and ain't nobody talking about who knows him, who speaks for him, who's vouching for him, who do you know that I know, who can vouch for you, because I don't know you. So you see, if this individual hasn't put in the work to be known by the people, that's red flag number one. They just showed up out of nowhere. Oh, the party chose you. You know, the one in them plants. Where's your work among the people? Where's your track record that we can point out where folks like, yeah, we know this dude, he's solid. Folks know that. If you really working, people already know that. If they don't know that, it's probably because you ain't solid. You're just hoping the party can put enough money behind you that folks be like, oh, well, the party's chosen him. We might as well fall in line. Here we go. So number one, brothers, your work is going to speak for you. If your work's not speaking for you, then other folks should be able to vouch for you. People who are solid can vouch for you. If you don't have work that vouches for you, that's red flag number one. Other solid people don't vouch for you, that's red flag number two. 2 strikes, you out. Simple as that. 2 strikes, you're out. Because that's the way it works with everybody else. You don't have Asian politicians who just jump up and here they are. The Asian community got to know you. The Jewish community got to know you. The Arab community got to know you. With black folk, we've been putting this damn puppet cycle where they just drop somebody in front of us and tell you, okay, well, this person running, come support them. And that's what needs to change. And it is changing. Because the old folks will take whoever the politicians drop in front of them. Because they're just glad that the politicians acknowledge their existence. This is the first time that you've heard a group of black folk talking about, you know what, we shouldn't operate that way. This is new, brother. This is revolutionary. This is not decades old. What we're doing right now is new. Brand new. But it's going to bear fruit also. I'll let you have the last word.
Well, I hope so. I hope it's a new movement. Because, I mean, some of the mayors that I have seen in office, like Lori Lightfoot, I wonder how that happened. And I'm just hoping that we've learned from our mistakes and understand that, no, we need some type of familiarity with the individuals that are going to be in these very powerful positions.
Thank you very much for giving us a call, 9. Let me get call of America 310. You're on live with the Black Channel. What's your name? Where you calling from?
Yeah, it's KT from Atlanta, Georgia.
KT from Atlanta, what's on your mind?
Yes, sir. I just wanted to have a question about how you were talking about how these corporates, they shield themselves with their actual finances and their money. My question was, like, some years back we had certain, I would say, like in the fashion industry, they were doing certain things that was racist to basically, people got mad about them, and it was basically, I guess, I felt it was to keep us black people away from those actual entities. Do you think that was like a gauge the dominant society used to see, to basically test us to see if we will come back, or to see how long our money will last, or how long we'll stay away from them?
Well, I can't say it's a gauge of doing so, but what I will say is that they've never been worried about boycotts. They've never been worried about boycotts. Okay. They've done the math on it. They've done the math on it. And that's why I brought you all together to let you know, by the way, I've done the math on it too. America's economy lost 5% or more when COVID hit. That was COVID. Folks, with a regular economic recession, you're going to lose a couple of percentage points of economic growth. Black people comprise 1/2 of 1% of the economy. 1/2 of 1%. You're not shutting down anything with that. You're going to inconvenience some small businesses, don't get me wrong, but you're not shutting anything major down with that, because they've got you in such an economically deprived situation that you do register on the board, but you're not taking no bodies. That's the problem. You can't take down a Macy's or a Nordstrom's when you comprise 1/2 of 1% of its income. Now, even in some of the cases, some of these stores, like we pointed out here before, maybe you make up a higher percentage of their income. Well, certainly that would certainly do some things to their bottom line. Don't get me wrong, but please understand, if you are too much trouble, they will simply realign the business into something else. Anybody who thinks that these folks are scared of that, man, they shutting down Walmart stores and Walmart markets and Target stores in the black neighborhoods. So if you've ever deceived yourself into thinking that your dollars are indispensable or inexpendable, by the way, maybe you hadn't noticed what they're doing. So we are a nice additive when we're there. And for certain businesses, we do form a core of those, kind of like we do in politics. We do kind of form a foundation with other businesses. Sure, we do. But please don't believe that they're scared or frightened about that. These folks can realign what they're doing elsewhere to serve other folk, and it literally without missing a beat. Nike loves that Michael Jordan money, but in reality, folks, when you think about it for just a few moments there, if Nike disappeared tomorrow, what would that do to the overall profitability of the clothing industry? Thank you very much for giving us a call. Far more important and far more effective would be us aggregating our money with each other. More important than trying to boycott someone else or whatever, the most important thing you could do is aggregate with each other. If LeBron James and the entertainment class are not serving our interests, the most powerful, let me tell y'all something right now. We would get more benefit from 3 black people in Atlanta purchasing 2 or 3 hotels than we would from LeBron James and all of his millions, which really ain't his millions. Think about that for just a few moments. We would get more benefit from 3 black folk in Atlanta purchasing one of the parking garages downtown. Downtown Atlanta, right there, all around the Westin, you got several parking garages all around that mammoth structure. We would get a hell of a whole lot more benefit out of purchasing something like that, getting together with just a few black folks getting together with something like that. You don't need hundreds of millions of dollars. You would have more benefit and be able to do more for your people with just that. You're going up and down 85 people there where the Homewood Suites, where the Stay Bridge is, where the W is. You would get more benefit out of. Our people would get more benefit out of that. Just that one thing alone. No NBA team required. It don't require the Mercedes Stadium. You don't need the Mercedes Stadium. You don't need Braves Field. You don't need the Hawks playing. You would get more benefit out of that right there by itself. I know it sounds like, Jason, there's no way the economics of that work out. Yes, it does. Yes, it does. You have more power and influence than LeBron James has. If you owned one Holiday Inn, you'd have more power and influence than LeBron James has. He gets a lot of press. That's their job. They keep these big businesses viable by doing a whole lot of press and have a whole bunch of headlines. Caller from area code 312. You're on live with the Black Channel. What's your name? Where you calling from?
My name is Zeb. I'm calling from Seattle, but I'm originally from Chicago.
Okay, Zeb from Seattle. What's on your mind?
I also wanted to allude to what you briefly just expounded on as far as us aggregating our funds, and the people need to know it only takes critical mass, which is the minimal size or amount of something required to start or maintain a venture. It doesn't take all 50 million of us, it just, once again, a critical mass, which takes, so pardon me, but that aspect, okay, but also I wanted to allude to, but shine light on just civil legalese and how Black people need to really educate themselves on law, on like not just law, but particularly the Rights Act, because I'm currently doing a case pro se in federal court. I just recently filed my own case pro se in regards to Title VI of the Civil Rights Act, which prohibits any federally funded institution from practicing discrimination. My premise is that they made a mendacious phone call and they unlawfully summoned the police there, gave inconsistent narratives as to what happened. I have 911 transcripts. I have the police report.
Okay. Brother, thank you very much for giving us a call here tonight. Sounds like you have a bit of a different issue here. So, folks, if you want to discuss your legal cases here, because I can't vouch for it one way or the other, but if you wish to give the details of your legal cases here, maybe you can give us a call once you have those resolved, and maybe we can use that as a case law. But as far as promoting them, that would be a bit of a different matter. Folks here, understand this and part of an ongoing effort. It is not accidental. It is part of an ongoing effort, and it is not accidental. When they do these kind of things right here, this is a campaign against us, targeting us. And they're funded. That's the thing I want you to keep in mind most of all. These things are funded. If you want to know, these folks understand the value of passing the hat. If you really want to know how the Ed Blums and their kind are making such progress and whatnot, all these little think tanks and all these little smarmy, slimy little legal institutions that are just popping up and whatnot, but dude, it's follow the money. They're being funded. And whether it is media, whether it is entertainment, whether it is law, whether it's education, when we start funding these things and making sure they're properly funded, and then competent people are put in charge of it to make sure that the investment doesn't go bad, then you're going to see changes. But up until then, everything is available to be hijacked. I want you to understand that. Everything's available to be hijacked. And they're doing that. This is an ongoing crusade against us. I want to thank everyone who has contributed to support tonight's program on PayPal, on Venmo. Thank you very much for your support, Terrence, Kenneth, and everybody else here. And if you are new here to the Black Channel, welcome to the Haven of Intelligent Black Thought. We do this every weekend. Click that red subscribe button, click that yellow notification bell. Join us each and every time that we are here. If you haven't been to our website, blackchannelfilms.com, you want to go and check out our groundbreaking best-selling documentary work, 7 a.m., Gentrified, Race War, all available on DVD and streaming. Go to blackchannelfilms.com. That is blackchannelfilms.com. I want to thank all of you for joining us on tonight's program. Thank you for watching live or recorded. Thank you for liking, subscribing, and sharing. And this concludes tonight's broadcast of the Black Channel. I am your host, your brother, your humble servant, the Black Authority. And until next time, my brothers and my sisters from around the world, remember, Black is the future.